This morning on BRN, new retirement bills are being floated in Congress. Joining me now to help break it all down, David Levine is a principal with Groom Law Group. David, always great to see you. Thanks for joining us on the program this morning.
Jeff, as always, thanks for having me. It's great to be here. I missed my fellow Eagle this morning.
Yeah, he's soaring high and mighty in the skies. David, you and Kevin are so close to what's happening on Capitol Hill. There's a lot going on these days. I want to get your sense for where retirement might fit in terms of legislative priorities.
Sure. And I think a key thing to keep in mind is the word priorities, Jeff. Right
Yeah.
now, there's a lot of priorities. President Trump has made it very clear what he wants for legislation, taxes, immigration, those types of items. Those are not retirement. Also, we still have the ongoing funding of government and debt limits and all those things that Kevin and I have talked with you about in the past. As a result, where that leaves us today is that there is a lot of discussion of retirement. There are meetings being had, there's legislation being introduced. But is a big, to steal from the president, big, beautiful retirement bill about to pass right now? No. In fact, there are things that are still on the tracks from Secure 2.0, and I'll say at the Secure 2.0, whether it's cleanups, leftovers, however you'd like to characterize it, that are still out there. For example, we've talked, and I think it's given us fodder for more than enough appearances on your show, it is CITs and 403B.
Mm-hmm.
It almost feels like MEPS did, because I think Kevin and I spent half a decade talking to you about MEPS passing. And that same logic applies here as well. Uh, so the key is that is what we could be facing right now, because there's interest, there's movement, but at the same time, it's not the number one priority as to where we go at this moment. Number one. So you've got both future messaging and past. But maybe does it make sense that I turn into maybe some of the future things that are out there that what we're seeing at this point?
Yeah, and I think there are a lot of people. I just make a comment, get your reaction to it. I think there's a lot of people in the retirement industry that would love a big, beautiful retirement bill for the cleanups, but also the things going forward. David, you were going to talk about some of the legislative initiatives that maybe have bubbled up or percolated up. I don't know what the right word is. Maybe bubbled up is the right word. And there's a lot going on in terms of different types of investments, but also different types of retirement programs.
Absolutely. There is a ton out there. I will start with the beginning one that I was just touching on a moment. At some point, for CIT investment, collective investment trust investment in 403B will happen. It was in there, we had it in there in Secure 2.0, but it didn't cover security side. There was lots of back and forth. That will be something there, and there's legislation that's still being reintroduced on that. There are Senator Tuberville on the use of crypto, for instance, and crypto investments in 401k plans. Notably, crypto is allowed today, but it's clarifying the landscape because obviously in the Biden administration, there were some strong views against the use of crypto, and the Trump administration, through the executive order that the president issued, has also said we should encourage activities like crypto. Separately, there's other legislation, and we can bounce all over the political spectrum here, and I'm not taking a stance on any one particular one. There is the idea of a national 401k that's been previously introduced and been reintroduced, sort of a government-run option. For those who remember the back and forth over the Affordable Care Act back in
Yeah.
2009 in the beginning of the Obama administration, it's the federal option discussion. It doesn't necessarily get support across the entire aisle, just like crypto doesn't necessarily get support across the entire aisle. Separately, there's also other activities because there is a lot of interest right now in diversification of investments and solutions. Two examples that I'll give right now. One we've had a lot of legislation on, but we might see more. There's always the chance, is lifetime income. Lifetime income is a great example. We have Safe Harbor, the Secure Acts have tried to encourage it. We're seeing some more uptake. You see a lot of in the news. I know you've talked to a lot of people. You see a lot of press on this, but you will likely see maybe more things about lifetime income as ways to help people for that decumulation phase. But there's also other items. For instance, There have been announcements about products entering the market that include private market assets, and they can be all different types of private market assets. There was one big announcement in the last couple of weeks about one of the big fund companies. I'm not here to pitch for any of them, but one of the big fund companies that does target date funds introducing a really interesting product. The key behind it is there may be legislation supporting that as well as we go down the path. The idea is there's a lot of different ideas, and that's where we are right now. It's the idea factory.
Yeah, and so David, and these are going on in the Senate, as you said, with Coach Tuberville, and also in the House of Representatives. David, with all that's going on, is it plausible that you mentioned CITs, I'll take that one as an example, could get attached to another bill, knowing that we're not going to have the huge, big, beautiful retirement bill that we all crave, Secure 3.0, whatever they want to call it. Could some of these items, get attached to other pieces of legislation? And if so, what's the process for that to work its way through?
Sure. The answer is possibly, and I'm actually going to address it in two parts if I can. To address your question first directly, yes, there's always the chance, and we've seen this many times, when there's a budget resolution that covers an entire year or for the remainder of the year, because we often do continuing resolutions that sort of fund the government for months at a time, that you could have something dropped in. At this point, there's been more recent continuing resolutions have generally tended to be cleaner. In other words, fewer add-ons on them. If we get a full budget resolution, could it be there? Yes, but this is going to be a narrow, winding road. The Republicans have a narrow majority in the House, and they do, even though they're going to do it with what's called reconciliation in the past legislation, with what's called reconciliation in the Senate, these are items that require certain revenue impacts. So there's limits on what you can and cannot do without getting 60 votes in the Senate, which in English means you need Democrats, which means that we may see some more cleaner items, but a lot of this, so there is a chance, but a lot of this is also setting the groundwork, because before Secure 2, any piece of major legislation passes, there's always a lot of discussions and things often get rolled up. So maybe we're at the beginning of sort of getting the cars for the train pulled into the station to start arranging them on the train. Maybe one will get pulled off and attached to the big legislation that the Republican leadership is working on right now to pass. But we're going to have to see. So for right now, I think we have to basically say, don't assume anything will pass, but you might be surprised, because the way it happens, to go back to your question, Jeff, it can come out of nowhere. Because what can happen is there can be a bill, and then someone says, I want this in, and it gets snapped on, and there's not that much to debate, and it just passes.
Yeah, it just happens. Well, David, really appreciate coming on the program. It's always good to get the inside baseball, so to speak. And look, we'll be following up with you and Kevin throughout the year to see what happens, and hopefully there'll be some movement on some of these items that clearly are needed in the case of CITs. David, great to see you. Thanks for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we look forward to having you back on the program again very soon.
Jeff, thanks for having me. Have a great day.
And don't forget to subscribe to our daily newsletter, The Morning Post, for all the news in one place. Details, of course, at our website. And your subscription helps support all this great daily BRN content. Until tomorrow, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.